You are watching and listening to Bishop Brothers, a safe space where real issues being dealt with by real people are brought forth and discussed. Every week, the fire of love is lit as two 21st century bishops share the first century church message. Join and engage in the conversation, featuring grassroots interviews, book reviews, and God-inspired commentary. Here are your hosts, Aaron and John, Bishop and Bishop, Chief and Chief. But above all, they are brothers. Welcome aboard.
All right.
There we are.
Man.
There it is. There it is.
Glad to be back with you. I tell you,
Yeah.
it's heavy lifting tonight, though. Heavy lifting. This is one that, I say heavy lifting, but we're proud to have the courage. Not about us, but not about us. But we're just proud that we're not trying to hide away from this issue that, particularly now in this world that we have to deal with, and that's mental health. And we're honored that God has honored us to be able to put in a position that we can have this platform to be able to talk about the issue that here's the thing that's really sad and tragic to say, that you're probably not going to talk about in your church, that your pastor is probably most likely not going to meet with you about because of particularly with the book we're dealing with tonight. And so we're just happy to just have the opportunity just to share with you that, your mental health does not disconnect you from God, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah, absolutely not. And I think that's a myth that I think has kind of been pervasive in the church for most of its history. There was a point where the church kind of had an excuse, right? Like there was an excuse as to why this was happening. We just didn't know. But in the modern era where, we have a psychology field that's almost 150 years old, and we have, with the data and the things that we have now, I think for the church to continue on its way of ignoring it or pretending it's not real or that it's not happening is just as ignorant as trying to kill Galileo, for saying that the sun was the center of our universe, or I'm sorry, of our solar system, right? It's the same concept. The reason they wanted the Earth to be the center of the universe is because man wanted control, right? The church wanted control, and the best way to have control was, God made this planet, and this planet is the center of everything. And when you do that, you can control. We do the same thing with mental health now, where, we don't understand it, so we're going to go ahead and try to control it. And that's the pitfall that a lot of pastors run into, and a lot of pastors feel challenged by it. But I hope as we go through the data tonight and we go through some of the things that at least we've seen in this book, Sharon, oh man, you want to talk about brave, having the courage to speak out, writing a book like this. Sarah Robinson does an amazing job of giving us a look to what it's like to be in a mental health crisis and have a church that is not prepared, not ready, and worse, doesn't care. And that's kind of where we find ourselves when we start with this book. I do want to start the same way the book does. In the very first pages of the book, this author does a great job of saying this. This is what I want to say first before we get into this. If you are struggling with depression, or you're struggling with mental health, or you're struggling with some of those things, get help. Don't wait till the end of this show. Hang up, right? Put the Facebook down. Call somebody. Get help. It's biblical. It's absolutely biblical. Reach out. I don't care what your pastor says. If they are standing against you reaching out for mental health, they're wrong. So I wanted to make sure that was clear. Please call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-8255 or text the word HOME to 741-741. Okay? And if your pastor won't support you, well, now these two bishops are your pastor, and we're telling you to go get help. Okay? I wanted to make sure we got that out in the beginning. Please get the help that you need. Now, you will find in this show and through this book especially, the church is really not prepared to deal with you. The church is not prepared to deal with mental health. There is a gaping hole between mental health and pastors. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that.
You know, and I'm glad we did the number, but here's what I want to really convey about mental health. Many times it's not a crisis, and this is what I got the term. It's not you want the crisis call hotline, but I think that's easy for us to say. It really is.
It is, yeah.
The problem is we don't want to deal with the condition.
No.
We don't want as pastors and leaders in churches. We want to stand up and say, okay, let's go to therapy. You're not in a crisis, but you're just depressed. You have anxiety. Mental health is the leprosy of the 21st century.
There it is.
To say that you have mental health issue, that's like saying you had leprosy. And if you had any scriptural knowledge, you know what the lepers was put in a leper colony and put cast away. We're here to tell you tonight is yes, you have a crisis, but we're also telling you that if you're in a body, because we're focusing on the church. This is not about no politics. This is about the house of God. We're focused. We are called bishops and overseers as the house of God, also in the church under His leadership. If in the house of God, if you are being marginalized, I love what this book does say: minimized, medicalized, and spiritualized.
There it is.
I love the word medicalized.
Yeah.
If you've been in the house of God, if you have a church that preaches against, because I heard this therapy, preaches against going outside of those four walls of the church and getting help.
Yep.
You need to not think about it, not pray about it, not have thoughts about it. You need to leave that place because your mental. Look, here's what we don't want to deal with. It's always pointing at, just like our bodies have issues, we all have some form of mental health. We need mental health therapy.
Right.
We need mental health. It's nothing. It's okay to say. If I got a back issue, nobody lets me funny when say I got to go for therapy for my back.
Right.
But if I tell as a bishop, if I tell you I got to get therapy for my mental health, I'm gonna get looked at funny because you're a bishop. What's the difference? It's still a part of my body anatomy. So this is what we want to talk about tonight. We're not talking about crisis, just in crisis, because we're gonna in this book of Robinson. This was just people telling her that, what's wrong with me?
Right.
And we're saying you just need to go through the process,
right?
Like anything, to get the help
exactly.
you need.
And I think a lot of times we have this habit of saying, well, there's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah.
We're trying to be nice and we're trying to say, well, there's nothing really wrong with you, but you do need to go get help. I think that kind of sends a mixed message. I think more what we should say, and what I've kind of learned over time, Pastor, and please let me know what you think. I think we need to say there is something wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm not capable, or I don't have the capacity to help you. Right. Let's get you to the help you need. To say there's nothing wrong with you is to deny that there's an issue, and I think that's the wrong route too. Even though I think people say that, they say that in the nicest way, but I don't think they're quite getting to the crux of the matter, and that's the fact that there is something wrong.
The issue is when you say what's wrong with me, as if that is something that we preach. There's relief from it. Right. And what we're telling you tonight, there's not always relief from it. There's something that you got to go through life, and nothing is wrong with you in the sense of God loving you, your relationship with Him. So that's what we're saying. When we're saying nothing is wrong with you from the sense of your relationship with God. Right. You have a condition that we need to recognize and quit dismissing it and saying, if Jesus don't fix, we've seen the song, Jesus will fix it. If He doesn't fix it, then they get stigmatized. We get stigmatized as saying something is wrong with you, and we don't want to just deal with the issue and say, okay, no, we have to deal with the situation, and we want to just thoughts and prayer. We live
everything.
We thought and prayer everything away.
Everything.
We thought and prayer, and no, there's nothing wrong with you as far as your relationship with God as being a human being because you have anxiety issue, because you have depression, because you may have suicidal thoughts, things like that. Right. We need to quit preaching that just because you walk to an altar and some people slap some oil on you that you're going to be okay.
That's right.
That is a lie.
That is a lie. Yep.
See, I grew up with that mess. That, there's something wrong with you. You don't have no faith. You need to fast more. You need to pray more. Why are you still depressed? Why aren't you over it? Wow. Why aren't you past it? In the church, we've been complicit in this line, in this stigma. Yeah,
and in the churches that I went to, clearly we went to probably significantly different churches. Since by the good plug for that, Sunday is absolutely the most segregated hour on the planet.
Right.
But in our churches, it wasn't. They didn't even want you to go up and get the oil. They wanted you to not be in church, right? Because if you were in church and you still had the problem, then we all had to face the reality that God didn't fix that. And now, could there be something wrong with God? See, it was all about us, right? We made it about us, and then we basically scapegoated people that were going through these crises, and and we would tell them the same things, pray, fast, maybe we got to get the demon out of you. But it very similar to there would come a point where we would just shun them. Yeah. They just wouldn't be invited back to church. Right. And they knew they weren't welcome, which is heartbreaking. Right. It's heartbreaking that happens. And I know our two churches aren't the only two churches in America that did that, right? So it is a church-wide problem. Now, I'm going to bring up some statistics, and these statistics actually come from an evangelically based group, right? That's pro-church. So I think it kind of lends. You'll see that there's some skewed data in there, and their data actually proves that it's skewed. But I wanted to get your take on some of these first, as I kind of go through them. So if we take a look, so here you have your different statistics, right? And I'll read them out here as we go through them. But the first statistic up there, there's a lot of them up there. It may take you a while to read it, but the first one up there, 23% of pastors acknowledge they have personally struggled with a mental illness. Okay, and that checks. I think that number's low. Yeah. Just the stress of running a church can make you get anxiety. I know I used to get massive anxiety before services, before big events that we had put a lot of church funds into for them to go off well.
Hey,
you got some of that anxiety right now?
This is admission hour.
Yeah.
You know what? I don't care about y'all stigmas. I don't care how you define me. I'm going through some serious anxiety right now of moving locations. Yeah. It's okay. I went through some serious anxiety when I retired from the military.
Yes, absolutely.
It's okay. The notion I'm sitting back saying on anxiety, and I thank God I got people like you around me that I can say that, hey, I got some anxiety about that. That I say, okay, don't look down on me. You help me. This is where we got to get to. Yeah. Yeah, I think the number is very low. Real low.
I think it's exceptionally low.
Yeah.
But okay, so 23% of pastors were bold enough to admit it. Okay. So let's go to the second one. It says 49% of pastors say they rarely or never speak to their congregation about mental illness.
I think that's low too.
That's probably very 90%.
low. I've never. Come on. I'm 55 years old. I've never been in a service. Come on.
Hey,
I've never been a preacher that on mental illness. Sermon on mental illness.
No, absolutely not. No. And I challenge you,
49. No.
Bishop Brothers family. I challenge you. Yeah. Go Google it right now. Yeah. Put us on in the background. That's fine. Go Google it right now, and you show me how many sermons you can find recorded on mental health and the issues in the church. In the prosperity era that we live in, where everybody preaching on cars, Cadillacs, and everything's good, you're going to be blessed. And if you do have them, and what they're preaching, what the sermon is, you need to be fixed. Right. Something is wrong with you. That's the sermon. I guess you have to define the sermon. Because, they preach that, you got a demon in you. We need to cast this stuff out of you. That's right. But they're not preaching that, therapy, resources, and things like that. No, and everything's okay. No. Right.
That number's.
Exactly. So I think that number's low, but I was actually surprised that many at least admitted it, which kind of lends to it. But here's my rub with those two statistics, right? So 2 out of 10 pastors admit they struggle, but half of them have never talked about it in their congregation.
Of course not.
So why, right? I think that's a good question. There are pastors that clearly understand that mental health is an issue because they're going through it. Yet half of them, by this data, I think it's more, by this data, by the raw data, half of them won't talk about it at all.
We know because it's performative. I got to wear the mask. I don't understand why this nation and the church have a problem with masks. We love our masks.
Yeah, we do.
We love our masks. We love the mask of everything's all right. I'm not going through anything. I'm not. I don't struggle. I'm the pastor, so everything's all right. And I think that's where we're so ineffective because. If a pastor, here's how you be, here's how you have your one-way ticket to be ineffective. Erase your humanity. when we erase our humanity and want to get up for folks just performing,
right?
Instead of, my wife will tell you, I tell people, you listen to a dysfunctional man. You
Right.
listen to a flawed man.
Exactly.
You listen to a man with issues. You listen to a person with problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
And nobody's got this is the main thing. I let you. Nobody's got to promote that. Nobody just said, and nobody told me about the service. Bishop, I ain't gonna listen to you no more because you're flawed and got dysfunction, got issue. You said it publicly. Nobody's ever left.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
amazing. It's amazing.
Exactly.
It's amazing when you show humanity. Actually, I've got more love.
Yeah. Absolutely.
To open my heart and take off the mask.
Yep. But I think also when you're pastoring a congregation and you are talking about mental health, or you are talking about social issues, you are talking about things outside of the four walls. In churches that I've attended, we like to stick with our theology, right? Like we like to write these beautiful sermons about soteriology and Calvinism and Arminianism, and we'll get so hyper focused and all that trash. It's not trash, but it is because the focus of the church isn't to make you a Calvinist.
No.
Or it shouldn't be.
Right.
The focus of the church is to do what, right? The great command.
Yes.
Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your might, and all your soul, right? And then love your neighbor as yourself. So love God and then love people. That's what you're supposed to be doing. Not, well, these are the 5 tenets of Calvinism, and if you don't believe in tulip, then, because that's what we do over in my kind of churches, that's what we focus on. And we'll leave this mental health stuff because then we have to actually deal with people. We have to deal with real hurting people that we can't slap oil on, or we can't just do a sermon or pray the anxiety out of them. And we realize that we're not God, and I think we don't like that.
Well, here's what I think, and they get mad at me because they don't like this type of preaching or talking. What it is about emotionalism. You have people up there crying, screaming, yelling all over the place, rolling around, snotting, all flying all over the place, and they just be emotionally crying. And they think it's the Spirit of God, but what you're doing is you're crying because you got anxiety. You're crying because you get depressed. You're crying because you're frustrated. Right. You're crying because you're not getting no help for what you said. So they trick you to come to this altar and cry this stuff out, and you have basically a crying session. It's no deliverance because you're up there Sunday after Sunday because you're not going through therapy. You're not going through the process. You're not getting help. You're not getting the resources you need. So they don't like that type of preaching.
No, they don't like that.
You're not going to get some things in your life you have, and you're not going to get relief because you're crying, snotting, and screaming around, performing, and these people, you people trick you. These preachers trick you. They pimps, most of them. They pimp you up there, and they're performing, and you so caught up in their charisma, they make the hair on they make your hair stand up, and you get so ooh and ah and swayed, and they think you think it's godliness, but it's a form of godliness, and so but you're still suffering. You go home that night, you cry on your pillow, you're still depressed, you're still suicidal. There's not nothing wrong with you. What is wrong is you have let yourself been indoctrinated with this brainwashing that Jesus will fix it. And so what they do, just like pimps, they want to keep you coming back for more. Yeah.
And then what happens if you come back and you say, well, what you told me to do didn't fix it, right? The screaming and hollering and getting laid out for Jesus. Now, what's wrong, Pastor? Yeah. What's wrong with me? Yeah, and the pastor's probably going to tell you, well, clearly it's something you're doing, because it can't be, don't touch my mantle, right? Right? Clearly it wasn't me. Yeah. It was something you did. Yeah. And that's where we get mental health just dead wrong. I completely agree. So, the next one is, 27% of churches said that they have a plan to assist families affected by mental illness. Okay. That's low. That's low.
I don't believe it that high.
It probably isn't that high.
Let's go back to the sermon.
Yeah.
I've never been in a church that has a plan for their plan is come to this altar. Yep. Pray it out.
Give me that tithe. Don't forget my money.
I don't have no experience in this. I'm not qualified. I know nothing about it. Listen, pastors, your sermons is not therapy.
That's right.
Jesus performed therapy when he said children after he was raised scarred. Wow. Scars?
You mean he kept the scars?
He kept the scar. And he said, children, have you have any meat? And you'll notice he had a therapy session with Peter when he asked Peter, do you love me? Because Peter needed rehabilitation. He wasn't preaching to Peter. He was having breakfast with Peter. And so breaking news, pastors, your sermon is not therapy sessions. And most of us, you are not qualified to get therapy. And that's where I know y'all gonna leave, but that's okay.
Yep, that's fine.
But I'm trying to help the people.
Yeah.
Your pastor, unless he's licensed and qualified, he's not providing you therapy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He can stay in his lane, her lane.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I found it very interesting that 23% of pastors acknowledge that they've struggled with it, and 27% of churches said they have a plan, which actually ties right into the fact that if you're not willing to talk about mental health, then you're likely are not in a place where you have the ability to help people with a mental health issue. Because if you're not even going to talk about it, you're certainly not going to have the mechanisms in place, right? So I don't know if they were trying to like show these statistics, like, wow, look how great the church is doing. Mm-hmm. That's trash. Yeah. In the 20s for a statistic. That's that's horrific, right? So. Yeah, so if you're not willing to talk about it, pastors, then of course you don't have a mechanism to deal with it or help with it. I would challenge. I've always challenged the pastors that I've worked with or mentored. Let me see your Rolodex. We call it a Rolodex, right? It kind of ages us, but let me see your phone. Show me a crisis hotline. Show me a mental health counselor or therapist. Show me an interventionist. Show me where you go when you get asked these things. And they're like, well, one of them told me, well, I had a counseling class in seminary. Oh, well, so 3 credit hours, and you're just an expert on how to deal with someone who's suicidal. Wow. Must have been a great class.
You don't think Peter was depressed, had anxiety, frustrated, down after he let Jesus down? Let's just be him. See, a lot of times we make these biblical characters, we make them, I think, these like almost angelic people. No, they was human beings. They were humans. You don't think? Let's just talk Peter. You don't think Peter was depressed and down?
Look how depressed Judas was.
I mean,
Judas killed himself.
I mean, so the notion that we got, Pastor, you're not even dealing with it because you don't even want to talk about it,
right? Because
your sermon, your performance is supposed to make people feel good about their lives. But that's all that jumping around, hooping and hollering.
Right.
No, and this is what I'm observing. Come on, this is what is frustrating me. I'm observing in this hour. I'm seeing the same thing. I'm watching the same pre-COVID movie, and guess what? It's the same script. Nothing's changed. If I can listen to a few good men, all I want to. At some point, they're going to say, "You can't handle the truth." And church, what we saying tonight, you can't handle the truth because you don't want to deal with mental health. Not because you don't know it exists. Not because you're ignorant.
That's right.
It's because you don't want to deal with it because it does not fit your narrative.
Right.
Your narrative is deliverance. Your narrative is freedom. Your narrative is you're going to get over. Your
name it and claim it.
Name it and claim it. That's your narrative. And so if I admit to this, then it doesn't fit the narrative. We're a nation that loves narrative.
Oh, we were huge fans of that.
And lies.
Oh yeah. And we'll fight to the death to keep them.
Yes.
So here's some more interesting facts. So 65% of church-going family members of those with mental illness want their church to talk openly about mental illness. So we have 2 in 10 pastors who struggle from it. Mm-hmm. Half of churches won't talk about it. Mm-hmm. Yet almost 7 in 10 people that struggle with this are desperate for the church to say something.
That's what we've been saying since. Of course, they want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about it. But then they don't want to say they want to talk. Here's the rub. The people 7% do. They'll do a survey, but they don't want to tell the pastor because they get they get put out the camp.
They'll get shunned. They'll get scapegoated.
You got to go.
Yeah, you go sit with the mask people.
Yeah, so this
is no mask alone. Yeah,
it's deliverance here. We have freedom here.
Yeah.
What's this mental illness stuff? What's wrong with you?
Yeah, must be a demon.
Yeah,
must be, right? So 65%. That's pretty wild. 59% of those actually suffering from mental illness say the same. So we're looking at 6 in 10 people who are struggling with mental illness is desperate for the church to do something, right? Instead of name it and claim it and scapegoat me when I don't get better, they're begging for it. So to me, this stat is a first indication of a blind spot in church leadership. If 7 out of 10 persons dealing with mental health issues want their church leadership to speak about it and be involved with it, why are only half of the churches even willing to discuss it, right? And sadly, it goes back to something we've said probably 3 different times tonight, is they'll lose control, right? Their narrative isn't going to get played out anymore, right? They have to admit that their hand can't actually heal depression.
But see, if I send you to the doctor, that might take some ties out of my coffin.
Right.
Now we're talking about real. Now we're getting real.
Money.
This is a money thing.
Yep.
This is a control thing.
That's right.
I need to control you.
Mm-hmm.
I need to keep you under my manipulation. This is how cults rise. This is how people, I need to make sure. So if I send you to Dr. John, the therapist, that's qualified to help you, that's going to take you from me. And so when you come back, then I can, and so what I need you to know, I need to make Jesus a mascot, and Jesus is going to fix it. I need you to believe in all these type of things. But no, the thing about we got to understand is some things you're going to have with you, and you just deal with it. It's okay. We're all special needs.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I really can't stand, these special need kids. I shocked her too. Later walked in my classroom. Hey, where I need special needs. I said, we're all special needs. Who you talking to?
Didn't know what to say, did
me
you?
too. I lead the class.
That's right.
Because guess what? My needs are not your needs. So my needs are special to God.
Right.
Your needs are special to Him. We're all special needs. It's erase stigma. Preacher, pastor, you got special needs too. Because your special need, you need to quit lying. Especially.
Oops.
You need to quit telling people false. You need to quit ostracizing. You need to quit stigmatizing. You need to quit thinking that your sermon, your performance, is to be all the end all. No, it's about Jesus. It's about Jesus.
And you need to stop this you need to stop this idea. You need to get your mantle out of the way of helping people. Yeah. You were not given a mantle for your own sake and for your own power. You were given a position of servitude, servant leadership. I've always said this. If servanthood is below you or beneath you, then leadership's beyond you. You can't lead if you don't know how to serve. Right? But we got a bunch of pastors now that, man, they got the fancy rings. They got, it blows my mind sometimes. These people got people open their doors for them. I'm like, man, you would not have survived in the first century church. These people were getting murdered.
The church is starting to murder?
It didn't?
No.
Uh-oh.
And that's what we view things through Western eyes.
We do. We absolutely do. And it's not always a bad thing to view things through Western eyes. It's when you refuse to see your bias. We have a bias, right? Like,
you think Paul's American?
Well, he has to be because Jesus is American.
Right. I mean, when you understand that the scripture is ancient.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't written in English?
No.
Weird.
So.
Yeah. So, okay. So, yeah. So there's a blind spot there. 53% of churchgoers with mental illness say the church has been supportive. Okay. So this may seem after reading all this other stuff.
I would love to see the support.
Yeah, I would love to see the support, but okay, I got to take the data for at face value.
Yeah.
But 53% is not good.
Nowhere near. But
in what
I just think it's low.
In what arena of higher learning is 53% like, woo, we're doing great?
Yeah.
Nowhere. Right? I guarantee you, probably the only place that 53% is good is baseball. That's probably it. Right? Because if you only made 53% of your shots in basketball, you wouldn't play long, right? That's not a good stat. They made it sound. They put it in this data like this was a great stat. Yeah. That's a terrible stat, and it's probably inflated, right? But here's what I want you to get out of it. This may seem like a decent statistic, but consider this from the viewpoint of a person that's suffering with a mental illness. This stat is telling me I got a 50-50 shot. I got a 50-50 shot that if I confide what I'm struggling with to anybody, right, or if I confide to a pastor, I got a 50-50 shot that I'm going to get supported. Those aren't odds I'd be willing to take. With the issues that I've had at 50-50, I'm not telling anybody anything, right? I wouldn't. So that's a terrible stat. So those are not numbers. Those aren't odds I'd be willing to take, right? So here's another one. 76% of churchgoers say suicide is a problem that needs to be addressed in their community. For a statistic, for this type of data, for that to be that high, that's a big deal. For
the community or church? It's pretty much addressed in the community.
Right. Well, what they meant was their community of believers, right? So their church,
All right.
right? 76% of people say suicide needs to be dealt with in the church.
Never heard no sermon.
So let's go back to the data beforehand,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
50% won't do it, clearly, and the other 50% probably perpetrate it or dance around it.
If you say anything about suicide, they're gonna drag you, kicking and screaming
man.
at the altar, and
Yep.
you're gonna know when you come off.
Better have your bags packed before you start.
You're about to get killed on the altar.
Yeah, fact.
They're gonna make a sacrificial. You talking about called being demon possessed?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
In my lived experience, I can tell you that is so. They don't. The issue is, here's the problem is that 76%. They don't want to know. Right. Most pastors, and maybe some of you going to pastor. Your pastor don't want to really hear you suicidal.
No.
They don't want to hear that.
That's terrifying.
Yes. Because then now I got to deal with something.
Mm-hmm.
And then how do I deal with it? Send you somewhere else?
I'm going to pray for you. That's what I'm getting my...
Because you know what? They take it as a personal affront to them.
Mm-hmm.
And pastor, breaking news. You'll find out it has nothing to do with you.
Ain't about you.
It's okay to still love them.
Right.
It's okay. That's what God called you to. Because Peter's failure, watch this. Peter's failure had nothing to do with Jesus. It was Peter's failure, and Jesus rehabilitated him.
Mm-hmm.
Your job, pastor, is not to take that personal, but to help them rehabilitate, love them, and help them get through the process.
Mm-hmm.
That's it's so when the chief wolf, the shepherd.
Mm-hmm.
Forget the wolves in sheep's clothes. When the wolf is the shepherd, then that's
bad. Yeah, but it happens over and over and over. And to say, well, I'm ignorant, I didn't know. I'm sorry. We live in an era where if you're a leader of people, and you are not, especially if you're a leader of people in a servant leadership position like a pastor, and you don't know where the network is for mental health. If you don't know, you're wrong, and you're pastoring wrong. That's atrocious.
But this is why I know they're not teaching us.
Exactly.
If I go, that's why Numbers 2. No, you don't have it. You should have this display. You don't have no. Mm-hmm. You don't.
Yeah.
Because you don't talk about those resources.
That's right.
Nobody makes sense. How many church you ever make an announcement in church? Not in church.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how you announce a 100 number in church?
No.
Have you ever heard them do that? Have you ever heard them say that if you got mental issues, hey, back. Here's y'all pimps, prophet pimps.
Mm-hmm.
Back, hypertension, suicide.
Oh, we want you up here.
Yeah, let's get this healing.
We can heal you.
Think about it. All the healing we talk about. Have you ever heard a prophet, these so-called prophet? Have you ever said, "Come on, if you got mental illness, come on up"?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Benny Hinn don't do that.
No, because the old coat.
That's right. That's right. The holy coat don't work on mental illness apparently, which is unfortunate.
Stops the mental illness.
That's right. Now these last couple ones. This is where this data. It's almost like they put these in here thinking, man, we're gonna make this data look really good. Mm-hmm. But if you're a student of data, you can pick this apart pretty easily. So 80% of pastors say that their church is equipped to assist someone who is threatening to take their own life. Okay, 80% of you are saying we're prepared for someone who's suicidal, yet 2 in 10 of you don't want to talk about your own problems. Mm-hmm. Half of you won't talk about it in service. The community says they want to hear from you, and they haven't heard from you. Those numbers are through the roof. So how on God's green earth are you prepared to deal with mental illness, especially suicide? You're not. You can answer on the survey all you want, but your own data, your own survey tells me you're not prepared. My experience with pastors and with bigger denominations, I know you're not prepared. For a long time, until I went to graduate school for psychology, I was not prepared. I mean, I did a 72-hour MDiv, right? Mm. 2 classes on mental health. And they weren't mental health, they were counseling. And they were biblical counseling, right? Because the answer cannot come from anywhere but the Bible. That's ridiculous. Are you going to sit here and tell me that the Bible is the only place where God speaks?
So you
wrong.
80%?
80%. Say they're ready. They can handle it.
Let me tell you something. Okay, I have a profession. I'm in a profession that if certain things get said to me, I can't I'm not justified by calling my supervisor.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not justified by calling the head of person. I must call the law. Must. And you know why we do it? Because of the threat of going to jail.
Mm-hmm.
Not because, see, in my profession, I would say that's lower because it's much higher. Because they're going to do it.
Right.
Not because it's right.
Right.
Not because the morality says it's to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I've got to do it because I'm going to jail for this.
Right. I'll lose at a minimum. I'll lose my job.
Pastor ain't worried about that.
No.
And that's another thing we this goes into. See, we're talking about abuse. You pastors, you're abusing people, and you're not worried about because nobody's holding you accountable. So you're not really worried about. So that number's way high because you're not worried about going to jail if you don't do the right thing. Because that's the only way we really do things right in this country is under threat of death, not because you have the moral courage to do right. And that number is not because they don't want to hear that. They're not dealing with that. They're not calling about it. They're gonna say pray or whatever they're gonna do. But they don't want to hear it because they're gonna say something wrong with you. So no.
Yeah, just wait. It gets worse.
No.
I didn't think it could get worse.
Yeah.
The numbers actually skew way worse. This one will be fun for you. 92% of the pastors surveyed say that their church is equipped to care for a family that experiences the suicide of a loved one. Okay, I'll go back to your own data.
What was the percent?
92.
So somebody killed them, so they're ready to deal with
They're ready to deal with the family as they go through the trauma. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you a personal, well, it's not a personal story, but it's a story that I watched happen firsthand, right? We had some members of the church that where I was an associate pastor, their son committed suicide. And 92% of pastors say they're equipped, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is what the pastor told them. Not everybody. This is what they said at his service. Like, this is his funeral service. They gave the thing that they wouldn't say this guy went to heaven at all, right? By the way, just because you commit suicide doesn't mean you go to hell. That's a lie. They didn't say that. Here's what they said. They said, how backhanded is this? They said, what do you think this person, where they are now, they didn't want to say hell, but that's what they meant, right? Mean what you say. Where this person is right now, what would he say to us? He would say to us that suicide is wrong. He would say to us that, so you're telling me you're speaking for someone who's dead. You got time to speak for the dead, but you don't have time to figure out a hotline or figure out, go to some training or spend some time outside of the Bible. So miss me. You're not ready. I've seen it firsthand. That family never came back to church again. Ever. Would you?
Yeah.
I mean, if you told me that, you don't know my son, you don't know what happened. Come on.
The notion that 90% of these so-called people say they qualify, it's people who went through this situation, lost their jobs. You won't give a family a meal. And you tell me you're going to go through a traumatic event like a suicide with
You're
them?
not ready.
Have several seats.
Sit all the way in the back. Yeah, go sit down.
You're not going to. Here's the thing I say. If I've talked to preachers, right? And I said, man, I got a bad back. I got, back issues of that. And I said, you getting into treatment? What you getting for it? Why does it change? Because I say, man,
yeah.
Just because you're depressed all the time, God is not a pill. It's helping people through the process. Why don't we ask church, right? Holy rollers, sanctified and filled with the Holy Ghost? Can somebody come up? Here's the question. Can somebody come up to you without you stigmatizing them? The reason why nobody's going to have the conversation with us tonight, because one, they're scared of the stigma that's going to pass with. I cannot put that out there. But we talk about back, probably, I got back issues, no problem. But the head, nobody's going to talk about it because it's stigmatized. And it's all in the body, in the so-called body of Christ.
It's everywhere.
Because we stigmatize.
Yes. Yep.
What? You're depressed? What? You got anxiety? Don't you believe God?
Right.
We say these type of things.
Right.
We just trust God. Thoughts and prayers.
Yeah. Oh man.
We're
Thoughts and
complicit.
prayers. We are absolutely complicit. The thing that drives me crazy about the data is 9 in 10 pastors say they're ready to deal with someone in a suicidal situation or with a family, but 3 in 10 being directly involved with someone who has committed suicide, but 8 in 10 pastors think their church is equipped to deal with it. So the audio don't match the video. The data's telling me that your own churches, when they took this survey, are telling us you have a blind spot. You clearly do not understand what your church needs. Because if they're rating your effectiveness at 30% and you think you're at 90%, that's very inflated. And I assure you, you're probably not ready. So, that's just that. 68% of Americans feel they would be welcome in church if they were mentally ill. So here's a wild thought about the statistics. So 8 in 10 Christians. So it says 68% of Americans. That doesn't necessarily mean Christian or not Christian. 8 in 10 Christians believe the church is not addressing the problem. 7 in 10 Americans feel that they would be welcome in the church with a mental illness. What I think is happening, the population is giving us the benefit of the doubt, and then they actually come into church, and it drops to 30%.
Let me tell you something. You won't walk. You won't walk. If you walk in there, mental illness, talking about therapy and all that kind of stuff, these churches in America, you will not be welcome.
Oh yeah.
You're not. They might play the game. They might put on the mat, play performative game, but I don't blame them at all.
I'll tell you this. So when I my first church I was at, where I got my first office, they did wall placards, and they were like, "What do you want on your wall?" Right? And at the time I didn't have my doctorate yet, so I said, "Well, just put John G. MA LMFT." Right? Oh, what is that? Licensed marriage and family therapist. They're like, "You can't put that on there." Why? Why can't I put that on there? Well, someone might walk by and we can't have a therapist on staff. That's ridiculous. You see how stupid you sound? You see how stupid that sounds? We won't even put. And if you, how on earth are we going to get one in the service if we won't even let someone put a name placard with correct data? That's crazy.
And yes, this is Attack the Church night.
Yes. Yeah, it is. Get your feelings hurt. Sorry.
Yes, we do, because we've been complicit. The house of God, it was really supposed to come where hope's supposed to come, where people with issues supposed to come and help them dealt with, so that not be ostracized, put away, put out, marginalized, cast aside, and because we're uncomfortable, because we don't want to deal with mental health.
That's right.
What I'm telling people dealing with is not you. They flip the script on you. Don't let them do it. They're uncomfortable. Don't see when a person is dealing with mental health, as a pastor, here's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to let them drive the train. I'm supposed to listen, keep my mouth shut, and then give them resources. But what we want to do, we want to control the narrative, control what it looks like, control when the cameras come on, what people see, control when somebody walks in the door. We don't want people that moves takes out our comfort zone. And this show, we always told you from the beginning, be comfortable being uncomfortable.
That's right.
Because this is Attack the Church night.
Right.
Because those number of many are not, they're not ready. They don't want to be ready. They're not trying to get ready. They have no resources. They're not talking to people in the community and says, okay, I have a doctor. We have a doctor on call that if we got, when you heard that?
Never.
We got somebody that we know that we got these issues. So we have to really just say, yes, we're here talking about us.
That's right.
Because we're part of the church.
You're going to love this last statistic. You ready? I cannot wait to see your face. Everybody look at Bishop's face when I read this. 35% of Americans say mental illness can be overcome with Bible study and prayer.
That's a lie.
Who believes that? Like, that is ridiculous. You know why they believe it? Because they have some pastor telling them that, right? Some person who went to school, who has their MDiv, ain't got no degree in psychology, but man, they can do the Bible in Hebrew. Well, that's great.
Why does mental the stick? I know why. I'm asking be returned.
Sure.
It's having depression, anxiety doesn't stop you from achieving in life. Somewhere I read that Abraham Lincoln suffered from depression.
Yeah.
Being a president is kind of a high office.
I've heard.
A little bit higher than a dog catcher.
A little bit, a little bit higher than a pastor, I'd say.
Yeah,
probably.
Well, no, pastor's higher, but
I'm talking about just by sheer numbers.
By sheer numbers and known and stuff like that. But I mean, that's a pretty. but he suffered depression,
and he still made it.
Yes,
wow.
we know many people in the Bible. We know that Peter never got over, even though he preached on Pentecost and he shadowed, healed people. We know he still dealt with that failure.
Yep.
Imagine you have. Let's just talk about this. Imagine you have to live with. It's one thing for me to let you down. You let me down.
Sure.
You let the Son of God down. I mean, let's just be real for one moment.
Yeah.
And I don't care. He gave you therapy, but that's something.
You're gonna carry that forever.
And you're gonna get down sometime. But man, you know what? I'm doing good now. I'm recovered. I remember. And so this is what people going through. Y'all need to wake up. When you go to, if you get therapy and help, you go through the highs and lows. She said, nobody wants to ride the waves with me.
Ooh, that's
pastors. We don't.
Man.
You don't want to ride the wave.
No.
You don't want you want to just pray away, preach away, have your sermon, but you don't want to ride the wave with people. Right. You don't want to go design people. You don't want to deal with them on the hollow. You don't have time because you're ready. You're there making a little sermon. You don't have time to ride that wave when it's down, when it's drowning. And she said nobody want to drown with me. Oof, man. We're playing church.
Yeah.
But Peter dealt with that, but he had friends. I'm pretty sure he had friends that John G around him, and people say, it's okay. Come on, you're doing good.
Yeah.
We're not recover because we let him down too. Encouraged him.
Yep.
Because some days you thought about that.
And Jesus actually spoke about this. He talked about building your house on sand.
Isn't that amazing?
Right. Jesus specifically said, "Do not build your house on sand." That means do not skimp on the infrastructure, right? A lot of these churches, they look really good. They got a great shell, right? You walk in there, it's clean, it's nice. Yeah. They got all the video. They got stuff nicer than ours. Mm-hmm. They look great. They got the no mask section or the mask section, all kinds of stuff. Coffee in the lobby, big coffee thing like that. Let someone come in there that says, "I'm thinking about killing myself." Mm-hmm. Watch the house of cards completely collapse. Watch it completely collapse because it's just a game. It's a show. It's not really church. It's a show.
And if we're being honest tonight, if you listen to this and you hear it later, let's tell the truth. How many in here, or how many would go to your pastor, honestly, and say you suffer from mental illness?
Yeah.
That would be almost zero. If it's not, people are lying.
Notice they didn't ask that question.
Yeah, many of you will not go to your.
Right.
You can listen. You can blow me off all you want to. Mm-hmm. You're not gonna go. And some of us have issues. We all have issues. Not some of us. We all have issues. You're not gonna go to your pastor and say you have mental issues because you know the stigma of it. Yep. You know you're not gonna be received well. You know most of them are not ready for it. They can't handle it. They can't deal with it. So this is the issue: is we don't want to deal with it. Not equipped, and the bigger problem, the greater tragedy, because we all got shortcomings. We're not trying to find out how to deal with it.
Right. Yeah, I'm reminded of a time at my church, or one of the churches I had up in Washington, where one of the pastors. So we're having our morning meeting, right? The pastors and the elders, and there was a horrific scream outside, right? So we're like, everybody gets up and goes to see what the problem is. And there's one of our church members on the ground screaming, right? Everybody runs over there, right? What's wrong? What's going on? What's going on? Mm-hmm. She is so hysterical she can't tell us what's wrong, right? Another lady comes out and goes, she just found out her dad died in a horrific accident down the road, right? She is on the floor screaming, right? You know what these people did? Let's pray for her.
See? Yeah.
Let's pray for her. Try to put their hands on her. Let's pray for her. And I'm thinking, okay, she's on the floor. It's 90 degrees outside. How hot is that cement? Right? She's probably hurting herself. She doesn't even realize it. Does she have a ride to the hospital? Is anybody going to go with her? She clearly cannot drive herself. See, you guys are so focused on the spiritual that you're missing your call to help people. Yeah. We're so focused on, we're going to pray this away. Yeah. What did they think was going to happen? We were just going to lay hands on this woman. All of a sudden she was like, yeah, my dad died. That's cool. In my head, I'm like, morons. What are we doing here?
It doesn't work that way.
No.
Even when Peter and John healed the man at the gate, they didn't pray. What did they say? Silver and gold have I none. Such the name of Jesus, rise up and walk. And they took the man by the hand and rose him up. They didn't pray.
No. That wasn't a prayer.
They didn't pray. They just did the work.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've twisted prayer into thinking that it's some kind of magic dust or something. What are we doing?
Yeah.
It's the process.
And, Sarah says, and this caught me early in the book. It's not even in the first chapter. It's in the introduction part. She has this quote. It says, "Loving Jesus didn't take away the darkness of depression."
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true. Loving Jesus, going into church and getting saved does not mean the next day all your problems go away. That's not how it works. Yet pastors want to pretend like that so they can get you in and get your money.
Mm-hmm. Loving Jesus doesn't cure you.
No.
Loving Jesus doesn't mean you don't struggle. Matter of fact, Jesus told us that we will.
It would be
struggle.
worse.
But see, that's erased because that doesn't fit the prosperity gospel narrative.
That's right. That's right.
Jesus said that you're going to have trouble on every side. Jesus is not a cure. They can leave now. This is it. It's over.
It's nice seeing you guys. Have a good night.
Jesus is not a vaccine for COVID-19.
Oh,
He's
wow.
not Jesus is my vaccine. No, he's not.
I don't know whether to laugh or cry because that's just...
I mean, people say,
wow.
Jesus is not... Jesus' birthday is not December 25th.
What?
Jesus does not cure COVID-19. He is not... You cannot go to no medical place and get a shot of Jesus for your vaccination of COVID-19.
Mm-hmm. That's absolutely right.
But we preach this is and what's happening now? The Delta variant is raging, and now people all of a sudden say, because the people that's vaccinated are not dying.
The wrong people are dying.
So now the wrong people are dying. So now let's take the thing. Let's stop the now. Why? Because see, the COVID-19 just like what Jesus told the man with the demons, said, "Send us in those swine." Once is a host.
That's right.
We want a place. Hey, if I can't stay here, we know you're not going to let us stay here, Jesus.
That's right.
Can you put us in those swine?
Please.
We just need a place to be.
That's right.
And these pastors in churches, y'all just in a place to be. You don't care about the people.
Yeah.
You don't care about the mental issues. You don't care about them. You just want a place so you can perform.
Oh, there it is.
Need people.
All about performances. Yep, that's exactly it.
And I love what she says too. She says, why did I steal her so much? And here's where people got her thinking. Why wouldn't God fix me? Because we preach. You know why she asked that? Because we preach.
Because the pastor talked about it.
God fix it all.
Yeah, He'll heal everything.
From the hands of God.
That's right.
So she's asking the question. And now, what I've said for many years, these people are blaming God for man's.
That's right.
I tell people, listen, hear me. The Bible is fine. Interpretations are wrong.
That's right. It's
this
absolutely
is when
right.
this is when the problems come in.
Oh yeah.
When this thing is the Bible is weaponized. God's gonna fix it, sister. You're depressed,
right.
or brother. You're angry. You're frustrated. God's gonna fix it.
That's right.
Who said?
Yeah. Oh yeah. This book comes exactly as advertised. It's compassionate, a shame-free guide for your darkest days. That I think no pastor should not have this in their rotation of reading, because you need to see what people are actually going through in your church when you say this garbage from the pulpit, right? She had another quote. Loving Jesus will not cure you. She describes a suicide attempt early on in the book. A very profound part of this is the fact that the actual attempt occurred 8 months after becoming saved. So she was quote unquote in the body of Christ for 8 months. The whole time getting told, well, you just got to pray it away. Something's wrong with you. It can't be my preaching. It can't be what's going on at this church. This person did all, and she talks about it. I did all the right things, right? I'm saved. I got baptized. I'm reading the Bible. I'm worshiping. I'm praying for others to be healed. And it did not change how she felt, right?
Yeah.
This is the problem with the church. It's not prepared for mental illness because it's so focused on making itself look good, running around with this false narrative of the church God will heal everything, if you just come to my church and pay your tithe. Right? And that is false. Big quote here. Instead of hope, my new faith faded into a gnawing sense of disappointment. Why did I still hurt so much? Like, I think that's part of the quote you brought up. Why wouldn't God fix me? Everyone at my new church seemed to receive constant reassurances of God's love and approval, but he seemed bitterly silent to me. It only reinforced the hatred I had carried for myself. God doesn't even want me. It's my fault. I'm too selfish and sinful. It's never going to get better. I felt sick all the time, and everything seemed so hollow. I was sure I was doomed to an unending ache, and I could not bear it. She didn't come up with that on her own. The church did that to her. And if we're being real, she probably would have been in a better place if she'd have just not gone to church. This made it worse. And that's what you're doing, church. You're making it worse. You're not fixing it. You're running on with your little narratives, and you're making the situation worse. I'm crushed by the reality of the pastor and church leadership contributing to this. This child had a wish to die. And if you look back, the contributing factor was church.
And we talk about theology, right? And we say we theologians. And here's the theology. Here's what she says that I love, and I want to bring home to people who are listening. So, some of y'all need to leave your churches because they have bad theology. Because she said they preach a theology, and it's when you see the bending hands, the coats flapping, all that, because lining up and all that kind of stuff. Some people, they teach a theology that, and it's a very human desire. This theology, and here's why it's so popular, here's why it's so lucrative. Because here's what she said. We as human beings, what are one of the one thing we want to do at all costs? If we think about it, it's a very easy answer. She said it. We want to avoid suffering. See, Jesus takes the suffering away.
That's right.
See, if we can, how can I avoid suffering? How can I avoid pain? And we don't really understand that's just the anticipus of God, because he suffered so that we won't have to suffer in eternity. I put on the thread of the day, don't be afraid of temporary.
That's right.
You serve a permanent God. Anything, hear me, whether it's good or bad, joy or sorrow, is temporary in this world.
That's right.
Everything around here is temporary.
That's right.
But God's
your comfort's temporary.
Your uncomfort's temporary.
That's right.
And we look at it both sides. So she said, but they know these pastors, these churches, y'all been called out tonight. You know people want to avoid suffering. You know people want relief. You know she was in dark. You know people want light in that darkness.
That's
you
right.
You know people want to deliver from that hell, and so you lie to people and you gin people up and you use charismatic leaders and you abuse people, and because you know they want to they want relief from that suffering. She said, I want a relief. I want it out of this dark. I want it out of this dark place, and y'all know that, and you preaching this gospel of lies. It's not good news. It's a false hope. And you twist Jesus and you weaponize Jesus, you weaponize the Bible to give people this false hope, because you know they're relief, because they know that people at all costs. It's right. A very human thing to do. Let me avoid suffering. And this is what she's saying. This is a theology. This is what we're going to call out. Ain't talking about politics tonight. It's a theology. The church, you forget these, I don't care about them. We are preaching this. We are telling people out. We're saying that there's some magic over here. There's some, you're going to get delivered. You're going to get set. No matter what it is, you're going to get set free. And that's not something. I go back to Peter. It doesn't matter how Jesus comforted him. Jesus Christ, God, did not unring Peter's bell. What was Peter's bell that he rung? When he denied Jesus. Right. And Peter had to deal with that bell he rung. I teach the law. I teach my class. Go out there and knock on the door. Somebody goes out and knocks on the door. And I say, pay no attention to that knock that you just heard. We see, you judges it all the time. Yeah. Jury, pay no attention to what you just said. Can they not? No. They still heard it. You can't unhear it.
You can't unhear it.
You can say it can be legally used against them, but they still heard. No, they still heard it.
There's no going back.
You can't unlock.
That's right. That's right. There's no way.
We're lying to people because you know people.
Mm-hmm.
This is that's just so brutally. She's right. You know people want to avoid suffering, so you just a snake oil salesman.
Yep.
And you're selling false Jesus,
That's
a
right.
myth, and
That's
people love that because they want,
Yep.
not because they don't have, because they want to avoid that stuff.
Right.
Hey, if I get to a Benny Hinn healing thing, I got a heart, I got whatever. I'm gonna get set free.
Yeah.
I need the coach.
Yeah. Our theology makes Jesus a lottery ticket, and that's typically what happens. You know, if someone walked into your church with a gunshot wound and they were bleeding out, what would you tell them? Would you tell them, take heart, praise the Lord even when it hurts?
I honestly believe some of these folks would.
Probably would. You know what? You're not wrong.
I honestly believe. I mean, when you're handling snakes,
Yeah.
you won't tell me it's. I mean, generally most people wouldn't, but it'd be some folks that'd be.
Mm-hmm. You're not wrong.
Bound up the wound, God.
You're not wrong. Yeah. Oh, Jesus, heal him. Well, just read some scripture verses. That ought to bind up that sucking chest wound from a bullet, right? No, you would call professionals. You would call 911. You would call the law. You would call the ambulance, right? Someone who actually has experience in dealing with this, you would call them. Why is mental health any different? We had a lady have a heart attack in church. Mm-hmm. Do you think we prayed that heart attack away? Mm-hmm. No, we called the ambulance. We stopped service. We called the ambulance. They showed up and took her away. I can't heal her. I'm not Jesus. Right?
And what does her faith have to do with having a heart attack?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. We're humans. We get older. Things happen to us, right?
Just because you get depressed and anxiety doesn't mean you have a lack of faith in God.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, I think really that's what this book drives home.
Yeah.
Is we have to. She very nicely calls out the church, and she's actually very, very nice when she says, it's not that people didn't want to help me; they didn't have the tools to help me. I believe that about her, the churchgoers around her. I just can't believe that about leadership because I've seen it myself. Last thing I'll say before we close tonight, I've been diagnosed with a mental condition. Mm-hmm. I would have never gone to the church. I never went, not having or wouldn't. I never went to the church to ask for help because I knew they weren't going to help me. They were going to try to pray it away. Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I've been praying. I've been a Christian for almost 20 years. Mm-hmm. You think if prayer worked, I wouldn't have tried that by now, right? I know I'm not full of it, and I know what I know because I've lived it and I've watched it happen. So pastors, don't hit me in the comment section with, well, you never been to my church. No, I've been to your church. Mm-hmm. I've been to all kinds of church. Mm-hmm. You show me on paper, send me a recording of your mental health sermon, and I'll believe you.
I'll close with this. You know me. I always try to do it practical, right? Mm-hmm. Teach, I got to do it practical, right?
Right. I know people saying right now they just cut. Oh, my pastor. Okay. Not my pastor.
This is what I want you to do. This is what I want you to do. Okay, do a taste test. Pepsi or Coke, right? Get the taste test.
Pepsi
what I want you to do. Hold on, I want you to do. Be a nice little congregant, or member, whatever you call yourself. Mm-hmm. Order this book. Right here. Yep. Order and give this. And don't send it.
No, hand it to him.
Walk to your pastor and give him this book and tell us his reaction.
I'd love to see that. Tape it
now
if you can.
think about that. Tape it if you can.
Tape it if you can.
Most of them going to have a visceral reaction, but most of them are so good that you won't be able to see it because they're so busy wearing masks.
That's right.
But if we could be fly on the walls when they get home to his wife or husband,
that's right.
Or the deacons,
that's right. The elders,
sister, brother,
you're gonna believe.
Gave me this book, but you're gonna get a lot of prayer. Might not be worth the prayer.
Oh yeah, you may not want it.
You'll get a lot of private prayer and give them this book. See reaction. They're not reading this because you said about preparedness, right?
That's right.
If they are, this would help you get.
Wow, thank you.
You can take a lot of you take a lot of sermons from this, can't you?
Oh yeah.
A lot of sermons. Right?
Oh yeah, that every chapter will preach.
So you preach it, right? Preach on this, pastor.
Let that be the title of your sermon. Yeah, do that.
Do a sermon because you can't do this in one sermon.
No,
Pastor,
no.
Would you go take a moment and say, Pastor, I've got this book I love. And they're going to probably, oh, yeah, what? I said, here, this is a gift to you. Could you do a sermon? You know how you do surveys? Mm-hmm. I do them.
Oh, yeah.
What do y'all want? Could you do a sermon series on this?
Crickets.
That's what I'll leave you with.
That's right.
That's right. I guarantee you.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Look at the reaction. Try it.
Yep. Hey, scoreboard don't lie. Tell you that. I've yet to see one. I've yet to see a sermon on mental health. So scoreboard don't lie.
I love Jesus, but I want this would be great.
Oh yeah.
I love you, but I want to die.
Oh no.
And she would be probably called everything, Sarah.
And she probably has been called everything. I bet if I went and looked back on Twitter, I bet I could find some colorful language. She just don't love Jesus enough, Bishop. That's the problem.
So, this is attack the leadership of the church night. Yes, and we're gonna keep it.
And you know what? This ain't gonna be the last time either. I promise you. Last year we were I think we kind of shared the load between politics and church. But this year, church, I'm sorry. Go ahead and shut it off. Stop watching, because this was the softball. Yeah, it's gonna get worse for you. So sorry.
Because this is the issue of the 21st century.
Yeah.
And this is what we're going to deal with and talk about. And we're not the shaming of people.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah. Well, thanks guys so much for if you made it all the way through everybody was here for the I Love Jesus, but I think a lot of people left for that, but I want to die.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much for go out and buy this book. This is a resource.
Yes.
That pastors need. You need this resource. I wish I would have had this book 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. I would have been able to do a lot more good and help with a lot more things if I'd have really understood what my congregation was going through and what people go through when they actually try to seek help from the church.
Isn't that something we're supposed to help people in the church? Really?
Weird. I know. It's service. Isn't that what it's called? Isn't that what we call our services every Sunday? Service. Right. Service with a smile. Pray for them.
That's supposed to help people with problems?
That's right.
Wow. Not just preach?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. I want to leave my preaching.
But we got a lot of great things coming this year. You won't always see us behind the desk. A couple times we got some surprises for you down the road. We're both working on books this year. We're excited to share that with you guys. Hang on tight.
You're on YouTube. Please like and subscribe to the channel where you always get the notification when we go live, and it's spread and shared if you can. And this here, we're not. Please share this video with somebody you love and somebody you care about, because it's not about us getting us likes. And if nobody likes it, if they hear it and can be blessed by it and get to this book, that's what we're all about.
That's right.
That's the purpose, because
that's right.
Our reward is on the other side. Because whatever we get here is temporary anyway. So, but we think we're excited about it because I thank her for writing this book.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah. It's so needed, and if we don't. To me, this is a definition of a prophet. This is what prophets do, right? They tell the church when they're doing wrong, and right now we're doing wrong. So thank you so much for listening, you guys. Have a great night. God bless.
Thanks for joining us on this week's episode of Bishop Brothers. Make sure to visit our page, Bishop Brothers, where you can like and follow so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, please tell a friend about the show. The brothers salute you. Until we meet again, Godspeed.